was great to talk to Alice Bradshaw from Dwell Time. It sounds like such a special magazine. In fact, I know that it is because I got to edit an edition of it, and that's how Alice and I came across each other. We met through the Leeds Creative Time Bank. And yeah, I really enjoyed the publication, and I thought it was great to see different types of art by all sorts of different people. And I love the idea of the connection with the Penistone train line. So have a check in the links to all the things that Alice is doing, but in the meantime, have a little listen. So welcome to episode 8 of the Chronic Bloody Virus Extraordinary episode. This week we have Alice Bradshaw. Hello, Alice.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, remotely of course. So you're going to tell me a little bit about Dwell Time. What is Dwell Time?
So Dwell Time is an arts publication reflecting on mental wellbeing. We're on issue 2, having originally started it to raise awareness about mental wellbeing after the death of our close friend in 2017. And he was always a really big advocate of using the arts to raise awareness. And Vanessa, Haley and I set up Dwell Time when soon after invited Lenny Szrama to come on board. And then we started collaborating with the Penistone Line Partnership, who are our main partners, to create something that was accessible as possible, that could be distributed along the train lines. So it's a print edition publication that's also available online. It's an open call so that anybody can get involved. And we publish every contribution that comes in, we publish it online and then make a selection from all the contributions each year. We've been running it annually so far to date, and curate the publication so it sits nicely on each page together, so that the collection as a whole is something that's a substantial and interesting piece of literature. And we were just about to launch issue 2 last March, just before lockdown was announced, and so the launch of issue 2 is actually on hold until we know more. We don't know whether we're going to do an online launch or whether we're just going to hold out until it's potentially possible to do something more live. Nobody knows much at the moment, so we can't really plan. But there's 3,000 publications sat in my studio that's in a shed in my back garden that we're kind of eager to get out there. And we've sent the contributors copies each, and I think that we're going to offer postal distribution in the meantime before we do any kind of launch. We're just not sure at this moment in time, just because everything's so up in the air. But the contributions are a really diverse mix of visual pieces and written pieces, some really kind of open, candid personal narratives, and sometimes there's fictional creative writing. And they all have this common theme of being around mental well-being, and that's as diverse as the contributions that. And we have amateur artists through to professional artists. It doesn't matter anybody's experience. It could be we've published people that have never written any poetry before in their lives. So the first poem they've written is in a workshop with us, and we publish it. So it's a really kind of open, accessible format that we try and use. And we do have a programme of workshops that contribute to each issue of the publication. So we work with different community groups, and we've done some workshops on the trains as well. Various different things like cut-up poetry or inspired from other poets. We'll look at other poets' work and kind of workshop around those. And we did some message in the bottle poetry workshops for Leeds Art in Mind Christmas Party, which was creating messages to somebody that maybe they'd lost, or to their former self or their future self. It was really open for interpretation. Decorating a bottle, and then people could take that away and do whatever they wanted with. They could, display it on their mantelpiece, give it to somebody, bury it. It was quite an open thing. So yeah, there's lots of kind of things that we try and encourage people to create content for each publication. And we don't know what we're going to be doing in year 3 yet, because obviously everything is up in the air. We hope we can continue with more publications, but we just don't know at this moment in time.
Yeah, I suppose you could look at finding ways to get people to submit stuff online to keep it going.
Yeah, so we've got a temporary open call that's responding to the current pandemic, and that'll run for as long as people are dealing with the issues of the pandemic, which, you know, that could be a very, very long time.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, we might, if we can get some funding, we might produce a print edition of that as well. So that might actually turn out to be an issue 3 in a sense. But so that's our current, what we're working on currently. We're still, obviously, there's issue 2 left to launch in some way. And then we've got this new special edition that may become issue 3. So there is plenty of work to be done.
Yeah. And so can people at least get in touch, get involved with Dwell Time?
Definitely. So our website has a special page for the open call that's out currently. Our website is dwelltimepress.wordpress.com, and in one of the menus at the top, depending on whether you access it on a laptop or a mobile, it's like the first menu, it's the C19 edition. And you can email directly. There's not any particular criteria, but there's just a bit of information on the website to describe what kind of the submission process is like. But the direct email is avavprojects@yahoo.co.uk.
Excellent. I'll put all that in the notes so people could just click straight through.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because I think it'll be interesting to see what sort of artistic things come out of this time, won't it?
We've had some fantastic submissions. I was looking at the folder of the current submissions, and I think there's like over 150. And all sorts of, there's definitely some common themes, as you'd expect, the kind of isolation themes and the loss and the loss of not just, you know, unfortunately lives, but the loss of a type of lifestyle, the loss of communication. But as with our usual kind of contributions, there is such a diverse range of work, from painting and collage to poems. I really enjoyed the process of looking through the submissions and uploading them each day, because even though we're dealing with a really sort of, on the whole, it's quite a sad, subject matter, it is really inspiring to see other people's work and to be able to platform them and share them. So yeah, I do love my job.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So have you always been interested in art?
Yeah, it was my undergraduate training was in fine art back in 2006. I graduated, and I've just been practicing ever since. And I did my master's in the value of rubbish. After a bit of a gap in education, I went back and did that between, I think, 2013 and 2015 at the University of Huddersfield. And just developed a curating practice alongside that artistic practice. And I always used to make this kind of like artificial distinction within my own head that I was an artist and a curator, but I think there's an overlap and they're one of the same thing. I write as well. I do some work for Corridor 8 writing, and I published a piece with sorry.
It's all right.
I was working on a publication with Corridor 8 and the Yorkshire Visual Arts Network called Resilience is Futile.
Yeah.
So my methodology was using a snowballing sampling of asking a group of artists, a group of art practitioners, people interested in art, who do they define as a resilient artist? I was asking for people to kind of recommend and signpost me resilient artists to really unpick what this term resilience means, especially in kind of artistic practice.
Right.
And I went and interviewed those artists and then asked for them a second recommendation, and went and interviewed those artists and created a kind of like, from the interviews, a sort of written profile of how they almost self-define themselves as resilient.
Right.
So they'd already been nominated by somebody else, whether they agreed with that, accolade or not. Some artists were like, they didn't understand why they'd been recommended as resilient, and but they.
That makes really interesting conversations anyway, though.
Yeah, really interesting. You know, what is resilience? Both in a sort of generic sense, what makes us collectively and individually resilient, but also their own practice. How have they made it work for themselves? You know, whether that's kind of just sustaining practice, how they make it work financially or don't in some cases. Yeah, really, really interesting interviews and conversations. So, there's a writing side of our practice as well.
And people can read about that in Corridor 8.
Yes, that's so that they're online as well, and I think all the Resilience is Futile stuff is available online to read as well. Just getting up the website. It's Corridor 8, the number 8.co.uk.
Brilliant, that's nice. That's great. So did you come to any sort of conclusion there about a definition of resilience?
Yeah, I think one of the main conclusions I came to was that it was a non-expectant generosity that made artists and artist network, particularly in the north, which is where we like my kind of work in Yorkshire particularly, where I was focused. That kind of makes us individually and collectively resilient. So obviously not kind of giving everything without a sort of payback and that kind of like giving your time away for free constantly, but being a little bit open to collaboration and unexpected consequences of saying, I'm trying to think of examples, but maybe kind of getting involved in something that you don't necessarily know that there's an immediate financial reward just because it sounds something that may be interesting. And from these little encounters, artists were finding that bigger things grew from them. So if you dip your toe in one kind of project and then that becomes something bigger, and then, you know, that sort of spreading of collaborative practice. And collaboration was a really big theme. Not all the artists I interviewed were sort of collaborative in a like that was their core practice, but there was definitely this element of networks being supportive of each other, and critical thinking as well, and having a peer network where that happens, so you're not existing in an isolated bubble, which is quite interesting in these times, how we can continue operating in that way when we are literally isolated from all our peer networks, and having to maintain that online or, you know, by phone call and stuff. So I think it'll be really interesting mapping how practice has shifted through these dark times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of sort of I'm very sad outcomes, but hopefully some positive outcomes. Looking again at the way that we organise our lives, and like you said, how you communicate with people. Yeah, and the whole obviously the difficulty of working from home as well. And like you are having to juggle several things at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's just standard now that we're having professional conversations and interviews and meetings, and there's background noise of children. I was speaking to I can't remember who it was yesterday, and it was like a support service, and they were apologising in their professional capacity that they had their children running around squealing in the background, and I said, I think it's just standard and people are really accepting of that now. We can't avoid it if you've got children.
You can't, and do you know what's one of the nice things for me is that my son's an adult and doesn't live here, you know, he's living in Liverpool now, but what's been really lovely is when we have team meetings at work, because I work in the University of Leeds in my day job, I've been really enjoying seeing people's children, you know, like my manager will say, oh, come on, you can say hello, and then you have to go off and do schoolwork. I've actually quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, I suppose it's a more kind of like real human, like natural, in your natural environment.
Exactly, and I think it helps you sort of take everybody into account as a fully rounded person, whereas usually in sort of a professional capacity, you would never have to be taking those things into account. Yeah,
and I think there is a kind of sort of a feminist stance to take on that as well, that women are expected as usually the main caregivers to be as available and you know, kind of not have to take into account childcare, for example, as their male counterparts. And that's a really massive sweeping statement, because there are obviously like exceptions to the rule, but in a general sense, it's usually the women that have to do the majority of the childcare and work around those needs. So for it to be very visible in, you know, the Zoom meetings and the video conferencing, it's and maybe that's going to instigate a change in practice and ways of thinking. That would be a good outcome, I think.
Yeah, I think fantastic. I mean, I'm really lucky. We get all sorts of great communications from the University of Leeds. with all sorts of links to things like, health and wellbeing, and all sorts of people doing different groups, and you're encouraged to join drop-in sessions, but you don't have to. And just the whole thing about them, they keep reiterating the message that you shouldn't feel guilty. Everybody's got different levels of work that they're going to be able to maintain or not. And I really like that sort of idea of it, because it is very difficult when you're first at home and you're sort of thinking, oh, should I be doing this and should I be doing that? And it feels like other people might be doing more than me. But you have to take into account this was a crazy situation. I had to quickly move some files before I had to leave university. Then to find out that my laptop is actually not stable or secure. So I'm doing a lot of work on an iPad, which is not ideal.
No.
But I think when we've got sort of time to reflect, which we seem to have a lot of at the moment, there's lots of things where our working conditions have changed, but not necessarily in a bad way.
Yeah, I think that I'm quite privileged that obviously a lot of things have changed, but I work from home anyway, and in terms of my work abilities, I've got everything I need here. Yeah. I've got my studio in my shed. I don't need to travel to it, which I think it depends on people's circumstances, whether it's shared studio or whether that's possible for a lot of people. So in terms of kind of continuing work, I'm in a really fortunate situation. And I've always juggled childcare with work and worked around my children's needs. So that's not changed. It's just the children's needs and them being here 24/7 is quite, that's the challenging bit. But I've roped them into helping me with some of my artwork. They get on the making vibe. It's not always, they're not always interested, but sometimes they'll join in and get me to make some things that are connected. And some of my, the work I'm doing at the moment is making some things to go in food parcels from the food banks, like colouring in sheets and stuff for the families that receive the food parcels. So having the children to kind of test these ideas on is really useful.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and for them as inspiration as well, to ask them to kind of a litmus test of would this idea be viable and stuff. If they're like, nah, that's boring, mummy, it's like, okay, I'll shelf that idea.
That's brilliant. So you've got your own little panel.
Yeah, I've got my little board, my advisory board.
And are you managing to get out and about with your children? Have you got any outside space?
Yeah, so we've got a nice sized garden. So again, we're really fortunate because I know a lot of people don't have that space, and we've got a park on our doorstep, which is usually fairly quiet. And my youngest has just got the hang of a pedal bike, so that's their new favourite thing, highlight of the day, to go around on the bikes. But when we first started going out again, because we were actually in quarantine before the lockdown came in, and then after we were out of the quarantine and it was okay to leave the house again and stuff, the kids, I was showing them how much 2 meters was, and saying this is how the 2 meters distance. These are reasons we have to keep that distance from people, and they were just not really kind of understanding that at first, and it was terrifying. But now they've taken that to the other extreme, and if they're cycling on a path, which is generally 2 meters wide, so they could be at the edges of the path and avoid people. If somebody's coming up the same path, they go there's somebody coming, and just turn around, and they're keeping probably about 40 meters distance from most people now. So it's gone the other way, but
oh, that's it.
They're funny.
So, are they missing school friends? Are you able to keep them entertained?
They're really missing their school friends. I think on the whole they're having a brilliant time because we've got absolutely tons of art materials. We're luckily we've got working printers so we can print off the schoolwork and stuff. But the thing that they're really, really missing is contact with their friends. And we do video calls with their friends. And my eldest, who's 7, can have a fairly decent conversation, but my 4-year-old is a bit she'll show her toys to her friends and have a bit of a chat, but it's not. They need that kind of they need that kind of hands-on play with each other, and it's just hard for everybody. But I think everybody's setup's unique. I know friends have siblings who are just fighting all day, which is really hard. And luckily, mine obviously do fight, but they generally get on, and they can play quite well together. For a lot of the time, they do need refereeing to some degree. I must be honest, but they kind of keep each other occupied for quite a long time, especially with the outdoor space and stuff. So.
So, do you think, can you sort of see anything positive coming out of this terrible situation in the future?
Hopefully, people will value what is important. I mean, a lot of people do anyway, but this kind of shift in understanding about what is genuinely important in society. Human connection is obviously, that's what makes us human, really, is the communication, connection to each other. And I think reinforcing that notion and definitely kind of moving forward as prioritising that, and mental well-being, and the role of the arts as well. So school have been really good by saying there's this work, but really you need to prioritise staying safe and staying well. And I think that having had an education system, or, you know, the kind of the top-down government saying we need to prioritise STEM subjects, blah, 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 and then when it comes down to it, we need to prioritise our well-being, which holistically is physical and mental well-being, and things like mindfulness and yoga and exercise and art are the things that are actually going to help us do that. Yeah. And those are really fundamentally what we need in life. Of course, we need, you know, literacy and all the core STEM subjects as well. But I think having that kind of shift in education as well to notice and acknowledge, and maybe like shift some policy and some working practices around that would be a really good outcome.
Like being able to, I mean, like you say, it's a bit pointless being educated in all these subjects if you don't have your own personal resilience.
Yeah.
And that seems to be like a big thing. I mean, it gets pushed at university a lot, that you can go on all sorts of different courses that are all about, you know, they're not necessarily anything to do with making your working practice better or doing anything that's going to in any way contribute to the University of Leeds' work. But I really like that, because I think it's great that they give you time to go on courses that are about making sure that you're okay.
Yeah.
And it seems to be like it seems to have been a wider conversation anyway, and then this happens.
Yeah, it's absolutely fundamental. So if you're not mentally well for whatever reason, whether that's, you know, to whatever degree, and then it kind of impacts on everything. So if you're asking people to perform to a really high standard and neglecting their mental well-being because of that, then it's just a kind of backwards way of working, because the performance is, you know, there's absolutely tons of evidence out there to support this, that your performance is going to decline if your mental well-being is optimum. So it makes total sense to support mental well-being as a kind of like fundamental thing. And I think that everything being so economy driven, and like capitalism ruling at the moment, it's just not working. And I think that it would be such a shame if the government managed to push the nation back into being economy driven again, after it's quite clearly shown that we don't need it to be that way, and actually it's not working.
Exactly. And I mean, if you look at how the virus is spread across the world, you know, it's because, I mean, you know, on the one hand it can seem like a great thing that you can travel all over the world, you can get to any country, but the other side of it is this. Being open to all of this. It's going to be a very interesting time to see how we come out the other side of it. And I mean, it's like, to me, I understand, you know, maybe I don't know enough about economics and things, but for the economy to be more important than human life, you know, just doesn't seem like the right way of doing things, does it?
No, it really doesn't. And I think that there was a point in the whole pandemic where the government seemed to be almost like socialist in their approach, I think.
Which I found like great to see.
Yeah. I think if that was, you know, moving forwards, a kind of a way of them operating, then that would be a really good positive to take out of all this as well. If they actually genuinely worked for the people they're supposed to and made decisions that were following the general consensus of public opinion, rather than just doing a kind of blindly deciding what's best for us all, regardless of evidence and and all of that kind of stuff. So that could be a really, really positive outcome as well, I think, if the whole way of the government and governance changing, and public policy and stuff. Yeah, and I think the environmental impact as well, I think is something that they're going to have to address, because all the pollution that's reduced dramatically because there's been less air travel and all that kind of stuff, and less people commuting to work, because and obviously some people have to commute and they can't avoid that, but there's lots of jobs that have quite easily proven that they don't have to go into the office all the time. And I think that that's going to have to be addressed, and could have a really positive impact on the environment as well. That's something that obviously a lot of people were and are pushing for, and we're not being listened to. So maybe this is the opportune time to address those kind of things.
Yeah, that's. I think I feel like. Excuse me. I feel like in many ways, this is a time to, we've got time to sort of reshape things and to have another look at the way things are done. Yeah,
definitely. Because we're being forced into this situation rather than having a resistance of people saying, "Oh, we've always done it this way." And being in denial about how well it's working and stuff. Yeah, I think it is a really good opportunity to change stuff for the better. So hopefully that will be possible and not just kind of sidelined as being something that isn't entertained.
Yeah, definitely. So just going back to dwell time, you mentioned the Penistone Line. Can you just explain how sort of railways link up with the publication?
Yeah, so when we were first developing the project, we got introduced to Rowena from the Penistone Line Partnership, and they were really keen to work with us. So we developed the project in partnership with them. And the connection with the trains, particularly the Penistone Line, is that it's a really slow, long journey through quite a lot of countryside. So it's the Huddersfield to Sheffield line, and I think it takes about an hour and nearly an hour and a half, an hour 20 minutes, something like that. So it's a really kind of it's an opportunity to read a book or to have a nap or just stare blankly out the window. And we were thinking about this journey as being a sort of parallel to this kind of reflective time that you can have on a train journey, and that sometimes that we need to take this sort of step out of our everyday busy lives, almost like kind of what we're being forced to do now in a sense for lots of people anyway. And being able to reflect on mental well-being as part of that sort of the cliched like journey of life kind of thing. So the reason that we're involved with the railways is just because of how the project developed, and in partnership with them. But we work now with cross country, which obviously covers a broader geographic, and northern, again, quite a wide geographic spread. So potentially in the future, the links that we could make with other community rail partnerships and other sort of areas of the north particularly, but cross country obviously kind of covers, wider than the north. So yeah, there's potential for us to span all over the place, and I think the connecting people via train is quite an interesting concept as well. That these publications, they are distributed by post at the moment, but they're generally taken on the train. Somebody will take a handful to their colleagues or whatever, and it's using the train networks as a model of distribution, although it's not kind of really exactly what we do, it's what's happening in part anyway. So yeah, and we do have a space in Huddersfield Town Centre as well that isn't to do with our the funded strand of the publication funded strand working with the rail networks currently. So it's an unfunded space that we've secured through East Street Arts Empty Space, Empty Shop programme. And we were going to develop a programme of events and exhibitions there, and hopefully we will get to do that in the future as well. So there is that side of what we're doing, which is maybe there's all sorts of ideas on the go that we could potentially provide a drop-in space where people could come and make something and have a chat. Potentially we could get some professionals to come and support work there, because obviously we're not trained counsellors or anything like that. So if people are coming with mental health needs, and obviously we can signpost them to existing services, but maybe there's an opportunity to have somebody to support in the space alongside the art programs we do. So there's lots of opportunities, providing we get to do something that's public facing again in the short term.
That all sounds great.
Yeah, really exciting stuff.
So have you always lived in Leeds, Alice?
So I'm originally from Oldham, and studied in Manchester. Well, I've always been hopping over the Pennines.
Right.
So so I came to Huddersfield to do my A-levels, and then Leeds to do my foundation, and then went to Manchester to do my BA, settled in Halifax, and then did my MA in Huddersfield. So I actually live halfway between Halifax and Huddersfield at the moment.
Right.
So there's always this kind of like across two different places. I don't like even when I was working in Leeds and Manchester, I never really sort of felt like an alliance to one of the cities. Some people feel really kind of like I'm Leeds based or I'm Manchester based, but it was really like people ask you to write a biography and or a statement and say where are you based, and I was like, well, I don't know. But now because I think what happened is that when you have children, you kind of like your sphere of not your diameter of travel becomes really small initially, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know, so then I was the Halifax base because that was like where I kind of lived, and you know, small children kind of are not that conducive to travelling all over the place as a rule. But yeah, I think that going forward into the future, people may be travelling less because of the restrictions in place initially. But also potentially a reluctance to, even when restrictions are lifted. And I think creating smaller local communities might be something that people tend to do more, like really sort of like micro local levels, like on your street rather than kind of in your town, or in a town rather than the region. Yeah, that could be something that comes out of it. I was talking to a friend yesterday about these WhatsApp groups that keep popping up about, maybe it's like a new WhatsApp group for your street.
Yeah.
So people might know everyone on the street really well, but there's this kind of like tendency for people not to necessarily know all their neighbours like we used to do maybe decades ago.
Yeah.
And I think that seems to be a shift change in the current situation as well, that people are talking to their neighbours. Like my next door neighbour that I'll say hi to and send Christmas cards to, she was having a chat over the fence for about an hour yesterday that we haven't done for a while. So I think that kind of like really sort of local community development in a sense might be something that happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, it's things like signing up with this Doing Good Leads. So I'm waiting to hear back. I'm going to be a person who calls elderly people who are perhaps a little bit isolated and just want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
What's great is I've always wanted to do something like that, but because my life's just been so hectic, I've never really had the luxury to sort of have the time to do anything like that. And I think that's another thing that might come out of it. You know, eventually when people start, I mean, obviously it's not doable for everybody because there's all sorts of different circumstances. But for some people, it's sort of giving you time to think about how do you want to use your time and how can you use your time.
Yeah, definitely. And that prioritising of like what is actually important to me as opposed to maybe what we think is socially important and conforming to social norms that aren't true to ourselves maybe. Yeah, and I think that could be a really good positive as well. And people doing stuff that they might not necessarily have thought to do because they were working too many hours and never had time, and actually doing a bit of volunteering and finding that is something that gives themselves like a real sense of purpose and giving back to the community. That could be, that'd be great.
Well, because you've obviously been in and out of Leeds for a long time, I feel like I can still ask you the three main questions. What would you say is something that is great about Leeds?
I think the arts community in Leeds is great. Having spent time in Manchester as art community, which is also great. And I think every city has its sort of like strengths and weaknesses and its own individual characteristic. But Leeds is particularly good and welcoming. and I think quite rich and diverse in the practices. There's all sorts of great stuff that, like the Leeds Creative Time Bank is a great thing, and there's all sorts of and I think the discipline practices that go on, and the links with the universities and academic sort of the research-based practices and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure it happens everywhere, but because I know of it in Leeds, I think it's a real strength of the arts community. So the arts community is definitely one of the plus points.
And what would you say is something that is not so great about Leeds?
I think some of the sort of like retail development stuff that's going on, which might become completely, irrelevant and obsolete. But the kind of is it the Victoria Shopping Centre? I get confused which is which. Just popped up, and every time I walk through it or near it, it's completely empty and just seems really pointless. And a really grotesque, ugly building as well. So I mean, maybe it goes back to this whole economy-driven culture. I suppose that doesn't. It's not something that I necessarily buy into.
Yeah, fair enough. And even if somebody had been a long-term resident of Leeds, would you be able to tell them about a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
I don't know if they've not heard of it or not, but there's a Thai supermarket that's just up the road from the Kirkgate Market that I stumbled across last time I was in Leeds, and it's just brilliant. If you like Thai food, obviously, it's you can get all the pastes and stuff for. And it's lovely to kind of see everything there and have all these lovely ingredients on the shelves. So, it's one of my favourite places to go now.
Oh, that's great. I'm definitely going to check that out when we're finally let out and about again.
Yeah, I don't know, because some of the food places are still open. I don't know whether that one might still be open.
Yeah, I just always wonder a bit about, because I live in Beeston.
Yeah.
It's like I know that the market is open, but I don't feel like, I mean, I'm not making a judgment on anyone else, I just mean for me personally, I don't think it's justified for me to get onto a bus to go into town, to go to the market, when I feel like I can shop, pretty close by. And that's not from me, like, worrying about contracting it or anything, it's about the whole, what is absolutely imperative for you to have to do. So that's the only thing that puts me off from going into town, really. Because, I mean, I absolutely love this city centre. I'm really missing all the buildings and, seeing all the people and stuff. But obviously, I just feel like at the moment, I can't sort of pass it to myself that it's okay for me to do that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's the same with me, because I don't live in Halifax town centre. I haven't been in Halifax town centre because I don't need to. So, I suppose if you don't need to, it's like, is it justifiable reason to go? But hopefully when the lockdown restrictions are eased a bit and it becomes a bit safer,
we can get back to ours when the shops in town.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Well, thank you so much for coming along and talking to me.
You're very welcome. It's been lovely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What will you be doing with the rest of your day?
We've got the paddling pool half inflated, so that's going to be on the agenda. I'm going to sit and make sure that they're safe and enjoy the sunshine. Daily bike ride's got to happen.
Yeah.
And then I think that'll probably see us into the evening.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, I hope you all really enjoyed the paddling pool and the sunshine.
Thank you, I'm sure we will. All right, thank you, take care.
Take care.
I really enjoyed speaking to Alice from Dwell Time, and even though you could hear a little bit of kerfuffle in the background from the children, I actually really enjoy that. I think it's absolutely lovely to hear little children giggling in the background, especially if you don't have any little children of your own giggling in your own home. That was really fantastic. So I hope that you can follow up and look at the links and see if you can even contribute to Dwell Time, which would be brilliant. The track for this week is by a wonderful lady called Teresa Terzione. The track is called A Perfect Circle, and she's actually releasing it today on Friday, the 1st of May. Go and check out all of her work. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care, Leeds, and I'll be speaking to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Perfect circle, I'm keeping my feet. keep me